Примите, пожалуйста, мои поклоны, уважаемые преданные. Харе Кришна. Добро пожаловать на очередное занятие Прабхупады Сандарбхи. Сейчас мы начнем сегодняшнее занятие с его милостью Крипамои Прабху, который продолжит обсуждение темы Гуру Татва. Мы подождем, когда Бхактивиген Госвами Махарадж присоединится к нам, чтобы представить нам нашего дорогого гостя. Крипамои Prabhu, I've just told the devotees that we're waiting for Bhaktivedanta Maharaj to join us and to introduce you as our very special guest for today's session. And I have muted you whenever you are ready to speak, you can unmute yourself. Примите, пожалуйста, мои поклоны, уважаемые преданные. Харе Кришна. Добро пожаловать на очередной.
Харе Кришна.
Харе Кришна Госвами Махарадж, примите наши поклоны, пожалуйста. Мы готовы к занятию. Крипамои Прабху тоже здесь. Крипамои Прабху, you may want to unmute your audio. Yes. And, дорогие преданные, наша встреча будет на английском языке, и перевод будет, как обычно, на отдельном канале. Вы должны для этого будете выбрать перевод на русский язык. Сейчас перевод начинается. Госвами Махарадж, я вам передаю слово и сам переключаюсь на перевод, на канал перевода.
Hare Krishna, dear Kripamaya Prabhu, please accept my humble obeisances. I'm very happy to introduce you to our students. Kripamaya Prabhu is a disciple of Srila Prabhupada. He has been serving in British Yatra many years. He's very respected among the devotees in London, especially in Bhaktivedanta manner. He is an initiating spiritual master, and for a long time he has been cultivating many people, preaching to them and doing Namhata programs. He is also a writer, author. He has written a very scholarly and beautiful book about the guru-disciple relationship, and therefore we invited him to conduct this session of Bhaktivedanta University about guru-disciple. His book is really beautiful. I loved it. I read it from cover to cover. So I'm very happy to introduce you and basically please do the needful now.
Thank you very much, Maharaj. I offer my respectful obeisances to you, Swami Maharaj, and to all the Vaishnavas who are here today. My great pleasure to be with you. It's such a wonderfully inspiring initiative to start a Bhaktivedanta University based on Prabhupada Sambandha. You've heard of different subjects. Bana Maharaj has spoken, Krishna Kshetra Swami Maharaj has spoken, and others, Giriraj Maharaj has spoken. Our subject today is Guru Tattva. It is probably one of the more controversial subjects that we have to study in our ISKCON today. And therefore, many devotees have many opinions, and we have many discussions and many conclusions. Every religion in the world has some notion of a spiritual teacher, and every department and denomination in Hinduism has the word guru. Now the word guru has started to cross over from Sanskrit into all the languages of the world, and it may mean different things for different people. So in your preaching and in your philosophical discussions, you may use the word guru differently. But our concern at Bhaktivedanta University is surely to focus on those aspects of Guru Tattva that Srila Prabhupada has repeatedly instructed. And when I was thinking what I should present to you today, I know that you are all very well-read devotees, and therefore many of the quotations Prabhupada makes about Guru, the purpose of Guru, the need for Guru, etc., will all be well known to you. But I thought that sometimes we have disagreements on certain quotations and how they fit our modern experience. I thought to just begin with making a clear statement. And this is that much of our Shastric quotations given to us by Srila Prabhupada come from three distinct periods in history. And according to those periods in history, there is different emphasis on what is a guru and what is a disciple. For instance, what many people call the early period, or the Vedic period, Puranic period, or the ancient period, is all quotations from the Vedas, Puranas, Upanishads, like that. These quotations refer to the lifestyle of particular type of guru and Guru Tattva and guru-disciple relationships. Then what we may call the middle period, which is post-Buddhism in India, post-Buddhism, Shankaracharya, all the way up to 1600 or 1700, like that. Say up to the time of maybe Baladeva Vibhushana. This period is a certain period that has different emphasis on different aspects of Guru Tattva. And then we may call something the modern period, which is after Gaudiya Vaishnavism became somewhat degraded or misaligned. And then we have many other Guru Tattva quotes. And it is in this section of history where we find Vaishnavacharyas speaking against such phenomena as the rascal guru, the bogus guru, that type of person who will mislead disciples. We find a lot more quotes like that. And then after Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur is our ISKCON movement, which you might call the post-modern era, where we have, again, different emphasis. And these emphases are given because of the need of the day. The difficulty is that sometimes different quotes are used to establish different truths. And in our ISKCON movement today, sometimes a person will give a quote from the Puranas, and another devotee will give a quote from Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur, and they will seemingly be in contravention to each other, as if they are arguing with each other. So I want to say that Prabhupada's Sambandha, Prabhupada's teachings, give us a full, rounded display of all the different quotations from all the different periods. So if we understand what was the emphasis in different periods, then we can understand how these quotes can be used and how they can be misunderstood. For instance, in ancient times, we find that the guru is someone who should be approached with firewood in your hand, samit pani, like this. You come to the guru with firewood in your hand, because the guru is usually an older person who may not be able to collect the firewood. He may be married, he may be living an ascetic life in the jungle or on the mountain. Then we see that Buddhism became very strong in India. Traditionally, you see in the ancient age, the sannyasis would not so much initiate, because initiate means the beginning of something. It means that you are beginning a period of education. So the mantras that you receive at Diksha are mantras that you will need throughout the period of education. And so sannyasi could not give or would not give mantras because he was traveling all the time. And how could he teach if he was traveling? So with the sannyasis traveling, the Buddhists began to copy the sannyasis by shaving their heads, dressing in saffron. And instead of traveling, they lived in guhas or caves, often in colonies and cities. And the whole of India, Vedic culture became weak and Buddhism became very strong. Shankaracharya, around 800 AD, he copied the idea of Buddhists living together in a group. And that is how we find that the sannyasis were, for the first time in history, living in a city. And so they lived in a city and they initiated, and of course that regained Vedic culture. In ancient times, the guru was meant to teach something known as tattva. So tattva was the philosophy, and the ultimate aim was the purushartha, and the means for achieving the ultimate aim was called hita, or the modus operandi by which a disciple would achieve the ultimate aim. So after some time in the middle period, we find that different words are used to describe the same set of teachings, because according to analysis of a Vedic text, there is the metaphysical relationships between different entities, the soul or consciousness, and matter and God. These three metaphysical entities, the relationships between all of them are described. So this is the relationship, or the knots, the things that bind them together, is known as sambandha. And in a text, when we are making an analysis of a Vedic text, the idea is that you look at what is signposted in the text. It's just like when you're walking along a road and you see a sign, Moscow 50 miles this way, the sign will point. And so in a text, what is being signed is the abhida. Signpost is an abhida. So it becomes abhideya. So what the text is all about is abhideya, and of course prayojana is the ultimate conclusion of the text. So the words tattva, hita, and purushartha from the ancient language give way to sambandha, abhideya, and prayojana in the middle period. Similarly, in the ancient period, a shiksha guru was someone who taught grammar, the meanings of words, how to put the syllables together, the pronunciation, how much emphasis to give, strong sounding, weak sounding syllables in a Vedic mantra. This was the shiksha guru, and the theology behind the different words that were being used. In the middle period, Shiksha Guru often meant a person who was giving the most relevant information, because just after say 200 years after Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the Diksha Guru phenomenon, which was heavily influenced by Islam in India at that time, where the Islamic leaders extracted a tax from the gurus as jizya in order to practice Hinduism. And then this led, one of the reasons it led to gurus initiating disciples and taking donations from them, but not teaching them very much. So this culture led to a destruction of the normal function of guru-disciple relationship. And therefore a Diksha Guru became someone who simply gave a mantra and nothing else. So by the time we get to Bhaktivinoda Thakur and Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur, they are describing Diksha Gurus as almost useless and Shiksha Guru as being the most important person. And then we come to our postmodern times in ISKCON, where we use the word Shiksha Guru to mean almost anyone that gives relevant instructions, and Diksha Guru, we have our own definitions. So what we're concerned with in perpetuating Prabhupada's teaching is an understanding of how different emphasis was given at different points in history. And so Prabhupada uses a broad range of purports to describe the different phenomenon of the Guru, but sometimes it becomes mixed up and it leads to misunderstandings, and also to misunderstandings in our ISKCON culture as well. So I wanted to start by explaining that, because I've counted 9 areas which Prabhupada focused on. I may be incomplete, but I've counted 9 areas in which I think Prabhupada gave a very particular emphasis to certain aspects of Guru Tattva. So first of all, he talks about the need for a guru. Why do you need a guru at all? And then he speaks about what is a guru. You need a guru, but this is why you need a guru, but what is a guru? Who is a guru? Next obvious question from that is how to find a guru. And then on repeated occasions, Prabhupada, he takes the, you might say he takes the mystique, or the artificial mystique of finding a guru, by explaining to us that the guru is physical. The guru is not something or someone appearing within, that is Paramatma, but the guru is manifest outside you in the form of a human being, in the form of someone who is accessible, in the form of someone you can bow down to and ask questions to. He's physically manifest. So Prabhupada spends some time throughout his books explaining what a guru is, but he also explains what a guru is not, by saying he's not invisible, he's not inaccessible, he's not someone who is incorporeal or unphysical. He's a person that is right in front of you. There was an occasion in London where an Indian lady asked Prabhupada, can you surrender to a book? And Prabhupada asked for clarification. He said, what did she say? The disciple said, she says, can she surrender to a book? If you're in your books, can she surrender to the books? He said, yes, but you make a guru concrete also. Concrete, meaning something physical in front of you. Next, Prabhupada talks about the parampara, how the guru comes in a line of gurus and how he preserves the teaching. Then number 6, he talks about the guru's mission. What does a guru do apart from teaching? Well, he teaches his disciples and they teach others, and that creates an organization within the world. And then Prabhupada does something which is unusual for us, perhaps, because in the days of Prabhupada, no one used the word guru for anybody except Prabhupada. And except that Prabhupada very regularly, I've seen it in lessons and purports that he wrote all throughout his 12-year period within the world. He talked about the need for gurus in the future. So he said many gurus are required. The guru is not an exclusive person who's inaccessible and there's only one or two of him, which was the perception that we had with Prabhupada, that Prabhupada was the only pure devotee. There's only one of him. He's relatively inaccessible. This, if you like, is the template or the blueprint for a guru in the 1960s and 70s within ISKCON. However, what Prabhupada said is we need many, many thousands of acharyas. So this is something that often gets forgotten in our ISKCON today, that we have a relatively, still a relatively selective, exclusive understanding of the guru as a somewhat very small number of people. The way Prabhupada, at least in 1975 and 67 and 72, he describes the guru as being as many as possible. So this, I think, is a different aspect for us. Because if the guru's mission is to be manifest, then we need as many gurus as possible. However, all gurus may not be, as Prabhupada says, perfect. They may be following, strictly following. So that was he wanted to make a categorical difference. Because in the 1600s and the 1700s, in our middle period literature, the guru is very often described as a liberated soul, and the guru has an eternal identity, and he is such and such manjari or such gopi or such and such eternal liberated soul of Krishna. However, Prabhupada gives us different options, and I think that's something that we would be very well to remember. At the same time, number 9, Prabhupada cautions us. So he sort of he makes bookends. You know, when you have books on a shelf and you have a block on one end and the other end. So on the one hand, the guru may not be perfect, but on the other hand, he'd better be perfect. He may be perfect as possible, because he should be strictly following. He should be, vacho vegam, manasakroda vegam. He should be, pure. He should be, there's a lot of restrictions placed so that we understand. So what a guru is and what a guru is not. Is that all right? So these are 9 areas of interest in 3 distinct historical periods, for which we will have different quotations. And many of these quotations, if not most of them, you will have read yourself. So I hope I won't sound repetitive when I speak about them. Hare Krishna. So Prabhupada, first of all, talks about the need for a guru. And really, he takes his teachings from I'm assuming that he takes his teachings from the Tattva Sandarbha by Srila Jiva Goswami, who talks about the 4 defects that he says we are subject to: false knowledge and mistaken perception, confusion. He uses the word bhrama, which means a dizziness. The head is spinning because the senses are inputting so much information, but we're not able to compute it. And the brain is not a good enough computer to understand reality simply through sense information. So then he says we are even with that sense perception, we're negligent of reality. This is pramada, or a type of madness. And our senses, even though so much information is coming in, they're imperfect. Karanapatava, we are incapable of reasoning power. And in that situation, that weak situation, we are envious of others, envious of the enjoyment of others, and we mislead them and we cheat them, or vipralipsa. So those 4 defects is pretty much where Prabhupada invalidates the capability of the human being to elevate himself. And therefore, that creates the need for the guru. Other stories that come from the Upanishads are of there was a young boy who got lost in the jungle. His father was the king. He was raised in the jungle by a family of people who kept pigs. They were uncivilized people living in the jungle. Came from the king and said, "Oh, I'm so glad we have found you. You are not actually part of this jungle tribe. You are actually the son of the king. Please come and regain your inheritance and live as a prince in the palace." So in this story, the material world is the jungle. The others in the material world are the pig keepers. And the minister who finds the grown-up boy as a young man, he is the guru. In another Upanishad, we learn the story of the man who came from Kandahar or Gandhara. The man was he was attacked by thieves, and he was tied up and thrown in a ditch in the desert. And a passing stranger came and cut his ropes and freed him. And this kind person who helped the man in the desert by cutting his ropes, this is the guru. So this is the classical understanding that I was lost and I was found by the guru. I was attacked and tied up in the desert, and the guru came and freed me. So with these stories, the Upanishads describe the position before meeting a guru and the situation after having a guru. So Prabhupada gives us all of these and stresses to us the need for the agency of others. And there are many, many quotes, and you will know them, and I will send you these sheets afterwards. Madan Mohan will distribute these sheets with all the quotes on. But within the Vedas, mainly the Upanishads, we find that God is beyond physical perception in the Svetashvatara Upanishad. In the Kena Upanishad, we find that the eye cannot go to God, nor speech, nor the mind. In the Vedanta Sutra, we find that logic cannot go to God. Just talking about God cannot go to God. They're inefficient. And we find that which is in Mahabharata, we find that the absolute truth is inconceivable. Do not attempt to approach the absolute truth through deductive reasoning. In the Mundaka Upanishad and the Katha Upanishad, we find this verse. You will know this verse, but I'll say it just for reference. Nayamatma pravachanena labhyo namedaya na bahuna shrutena. The Supreme cannot be known by any amount of intelligence or learning or discourse. But now comes the key element. Why do you need a guru? Not because he sees the truth only, but we need a guru because he knows Shastra, and Shastra can tell us the truth. So the guru is the mouthpiece of Shastra. And Prabhupada's focus on this protects us from the guru who does not refer to Shastra, but just refers to his own mystical experience of God. There are always gurus in the world who want to bypass Shastra and tell you about God from their own mystical experience. But in his description of guru, Prabhupada says, no, that is not possible. A guru is a mouthpiece of Shastra, speaks from Shastra, because Shastra is created by God And the Guru who knows God will have done that through Shastra. So there is no such person as a Guru who does not speak Shastra. So Prabhupada is very, very strong on that. Then the Katha Upanishad says, well, who can help us to know Shastra and know God? And that's where we find this Tarko Pratishta Shrutaya. Excuse me, not that one. But it says that by deductive reasoning we don't, but by especially qualified persons, they can speak on it. Then we find in other Shastra Mahabharata, we find Mahajano Yena Gata Sapanta, that God is within the grasp of the great devotees. Let me read. Interesting, in the Mundaka Upanishad, we find, and these are all when I say Mundaka Upanishad or Shvetashvatara Upanishad, these are the quotations from Shastra that Prabhupada chooses to share with us. So then we go on to the next aspect of Guru found in the Vedas, that some people, some souls, are chosen by God to represent him. That's Nayam Atma Pravachanena Labhyo. But he reserves the right to reveal himself to certain people. So we have this dual aspect of the Guru. One is that God has chosen him, he's revealed himself to him, but that doesn't bypass the other aspect of Guru, is that he has achieved understanding of Brahman by understanding the Vedas. So Shastra, God's choice, and the Guru's personal qualifications, we all have there. Chandogya Upanishad gives us Acharyavan Purusho Veda. If you have a Guru, you can know things as they are. And one of Prabhupada's favorite quotes was the Mundaka Upanishad, first chapter, first book, second chapter, verse number 12. If you know it, you can say it with me. That is the Tadvigyanartam Sa Gurum Evabhigachchet. And Prabhupada makes, in many purports, Prabhupada makes this Evabhigachchet. You must go. Eva means, he says, certainly you must go. Bigachchet means you must certainly go. So this is Mundaka Upanishad. This is a very common in Prabhupada's teachings. And then in Shvetashvatara Upanishad, we have, well, what happens when you find a Guru? We have, well, Yasya Deve Para Bhaktir, Yata Deve Tata Guru. All the meaning of scripture, all the meaning of Shastra becomes manifest in the heart of someone who has devotion for the Guru. And Srimad Bhagavatam, we find in the conversations between the Nava Yogendra and the king, that Tasmat Guru Prapadyeta, take shelter of a Guru. And then, of course, all of the Upanishads are spoken by Krishna in different ways in the Bhagavad Gita. Sometimes we have verses from the Upanishads directly quoted by Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita. And perhaps this might be a problem for other philosophers, that God is quoting from a scripture rather than speaking his own truth. But in our system, if God creates the Vedas, then he can speak them at a later date or whenever he chooses. So then we have a very famous verse everybody knows, Tadvidhi Pranipatena Pariprashnena Sevaya. These are the functions of a disciple to Pariprashna. We'll go into that a little later. So I hope that has clarified the aspect of the need for a guru. And in many times, and the reason why Prabhupada gave emphasis to anything was so that we would understand. the reason why he gave repeated emphasis to anything was that because we were failing to understand. And the reason why he said it over and over again was because devotees constantly came to him with the misunderstandings. Because the tendency of the Western mind, I don't know how it is in Russia, but the American mind and the European mind is to try to turn the guru into a friend, or to turn the guru into a priest, or to turn the guru into a therapist, or to turn the guru into a miracle performer. But that's usually in India. So every culture has what we think a guru is. And therefore there is a very strong tendency to try to change the guru into something that he is not, but something that I would like him to be. So Prabhupada resisted that. He saw that in his disciples. And so he wanted them to be very conscious of their tendency to look at the guru in a way that was culturally sensitive for them, or ego-syntonic, as we sometimes say. To try to turn the guru into someone who was, acceptable within that culture. But Prabhupada's insistence, I believe, was that we should all understand what is a guru in terms of what Shastra says a guru is. In other words, we are the servants of the Guru Tattva culture, not that we are trying to modify the guru or modulate the guru to be something that we would find more acceptable. So, next area. Is this all right? Can you wait? Put your hand up if you're okay. Just give me a wave. You're all right, okay. So, the trying to understand what is a guru.
Kripamoy Prabhu, just a second. It's just that when you ask devotee to do something, there is a delay in my interpretation. So you may want to wait for a few seconds before they respond to what you request them to do. For instance, when you ask them to raise your hands, then the devotees will, it will take a few seconds for them to hear that from me.
Okay.
So please don't be surprised and don't respond immediately to what you say.
Okay. Yes. I was just asking that if the speed is okay and we are okay with this level, then we can proceed. And I was asking everybody if you could just raise your hand and give me some initial feedback. That was all it was. Okay, good. Now I see some happy faces, so I'm happy too. So the Vayu Purana in ISKCON today, we in our postmodern period, we use the word guru. We don't use the word acharya. We only use the word acharya for one person, and that is Srila Prabhupada or other previous historical acharyas. And that's all right. That's one of the three meanings of acharya. But in ancient scriptures, we'll find that acharya and guru are interchangeable terminology, just so that is understood. So when we hear the words acharya from a Vedic scripture or the Upanishads, we should understand guru. When we see guru, we should understand acharya. And so acharya does not only mean the head of an institution, it can mean a guru living in a jungle, because acharya means achar is behavior. Chara means the flow of a river, chara, and a person's character is known as charitra. And acharya means one who has embraced the flow of the river of Dharma. So it means that he has not only learned something, but he's also teaching it, and he embodies it in his life like that. Of course, you knew that, I know. But sometimes we have to, when we come across a quote that says Acharya, we should understand that it doesn't mean a separate type of guru, but it means the same type of person. So an Acharya is one who's fully understands the conclusions of Shastra and whose behavior reflects his realization. He's a living example for what he teaches, and he teaches the meaning of scriptures by his words and his actions. So that's the description given in the Vayu Purana. And in the Manu Samhita, we find a very famous quote that Prabhupada used many times in the second chapter of the Manu Samhita, verse 140, is this Upaniya Tula Shisham Veda Madhyapayat Dvija, a guru or Acharya Brachakshate. Acharya is one who gives the sacred thread, trains the disciples in sacrifices, and teaches them the confidential meaning of the Vedas. He's known as Acharya, according to saintly authorities. However, by the time we get to the Shiksha and Diksha sort of separation in the time of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati was very strong against acharyas or gurus who were giving initiation by whispering the mantra into the ear, but not really teaching them anything. Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he said, this is useless. And Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati said, well, he said, all the Diksha Guru is doing is just blowing some wind into someone's ear. He said, you're not doing anything. So his translation of this verse is, an Acharya is one not only who gives the sacred thread, but who also teaches. So that was his emphasis. Okay. So I thought that the next aspect surely must be, how do you find such a person? And interestingly enough, Sri Krishna in the 11th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam describes 3 stages that one goes through in order to find a guru. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, just find one, surrender to him and ask questions. But in the longer conversation with Uddhava, Krishna describes how that happens. He says, first of all, your mind is your guru, because your mind reaches a point where you look at the world and you think, this is crazy. I need something more than what this world is providing. So then you begin looking for teaching. And he said, at that point, the whole universe begins to teach you. God begins to teach you through the universe. And Krishna himself tells the story of the young man who had 24 gurus. And the 3rd stage is where Krishna says that every lesson taught to you by the universe, all the good qualities reside in the body of the sadhu. And of all the different qualities that the sadhu has, the most important is that he is surrendered to me. So this is Krishna describing personally to Uddhava what is a guru. So the question was asked to Srila Prabhupada's guru, where does a person find his guru? And he gave an interesting answer. And it may help sometimes in our ISKCON movement to understand that it's not the business of guru-disciple relationship is very much not in the control of the GBC or the personal qualifications of the guru, but the aspirations of the disciple as well. So Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati said, whoever Sri Krishna, the embodiment of compassion, chooses to send you as your guru, that person alone will manifest before you externally as the Mahant Guru, the Guru in the form of the foremost living sadhu. By the mercy of Bhagavan, we obtain a Guru, and by the mercy of Guru, we obtain Bhagavan. And now it gets even more interesting. He says, a person will get a guru according to his destiny. People of different types vary in their disposition, and therefore Bhagavan, who knows everything, sends them each a particular type of guru. There are those who want a Nishkapata Kripa, the real mercy of Bhagavan. Being pleased with such simple-hearted, sincere persons, Bhagavan manifests before them as the guru. But for those who want Kapata Kripa, the deceptive mercy of Bhagavan, Bhagavan will send them a so-called guru according to the particular disposition of their heart. There is no impediment for one who is sincere. He will very quickly meet a bona fide guru. And when this happens, of course, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, Brahmanda Brahmite Kona Bhagwan Jeev Guru Krishna Prasade Pai Bhakti Lata Beach. Wandering throughout the universe, the living entity meets the guru if he's fortunate, and by the mercy of the guru, he gets the seed of bhakti. The next aspect that Prabhupada, now we are going at some pace through these different aspects, but I want to resolve it by perhaps spending some time at the end with your questions. There is a tendency amongst religious people to be sentimental. There is a tendency amongst people who are still those whose bhakti is motivated by karma tend to want a priest. Those whose bhakti is covered by yoga will want a mystical, a mystical person, or even a non-person, or even an invisible voice. And so Prabhupada, and those whose bhakti is covered by gyan, they sometimes want the guru to be God, that in the sense that he's a human being, but ultimately he's a white light. So the guru can get away with speaking many different things. So Prabhupada has spoken in such a way as to divest all these different illusions of their power. And he writes as early as 1960 about how the guru is physically manifest. This is a very important idea. So in 1960, in Easy Journey to Other Planets, Prabhupada writes, Krishna reveals himself from within to one who is serious about God realization. The spiritual master is the external manifestation of God who is situated in everyone's heart. As the super soul. And then in a class in, I believe, 1966, this is 6 years later in New York, Prabhupada says, Krishna, he is within our heart. As soon as we become a little inclined towards Krishna, then from within our heart, he gives favorable instruction. Krishna is the first spiritual master. And when we become more interested, then we have to go to a physical spiritual master. And then he uses Tadvidi Pranipatena. So he's talking about a physical manifestation. Again, he says in 1976, the same Paramatma, when he comes before you, being merciful upon you to teach you from outside, that is the Guru. That was in October 1976. And in 1974, he says, without, in the physical form of the spiritual master, and within, as the spiritual master within the heart. So there are many, many quotes like this. Is that okay? And in a beautiful quote in the story of Dhruva Maharaj, in the story of Dhruva Maharaj, Prabhupada makes a very nice point. He says he was recommended to meditate on God. He says, the Supreme Spiritual Master is Krishna, who is therefore known as Chaitya Guru. He helps from within, and he sends the Spiritual Master who helps from without. The Spiritual Master is the external manifestation of the Chaitya Guru, or the Spiritual Master sitting in everyone's heart. Prabhupada's terminology, of course, you will know that Prabhupada uses the word Acharya, or uses the word Guru. Most often he puts it in English as Spiritual Master. So all of these are equal expressions. But what about the Ritvik ideas that the Guru is manifest? Of course, you see what Prabhupada says here is that it's a direct challenge to those who would say, well, the Guru is much more importantly manifest in Vani. Vapu is not so important, because Prabhupada also says that. Mainly, he says it to his disciples who he cannot physically appear before them. They see him, you've got to understand that Prabhupada was traveling the world and we saw him once every year for 3 days. So to me and my godbrothers and my god-sisters, a guru is someone who, yes, he's physically manifest, but just not here in this country. He's always somewhere else. So Prabhupada would then give some support to his disciples by saying, yes, but Vani is more important than Vapu. Now there is a class of devotee who completely extrapolates these statements by saying, well, we can have access to Prabhupada right now as our guru without the physical manifestation. But in all the quotes that I've just given you, Prabhupada says that the guru is accessible as a physical manifestation. So they're taking one set of quotes, but not the other set of quotes. So then it is important sometimes for us to understand that although Vani and Vapu are there, these are considerations. But we should also consider how to access the Guru and the teaching of the Guru in a physically manifest way. And this is why we need thousands of Gurus, obviously. So Prabhupada sort of develops this point, and Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur develops this point by stressing that the Guru is accessible here and now. And the reason why the Guru is accessible here and now is that so that you don't become deviated from the message of the Guru. One time Prabhupada was in India and a disciple raised his hand and he said, Srila Prabhupada is the Guru. Are you available through your books? And Prabhupada said, yes. Then he realized the disciple didn't understand. So then he reached over and he took the disciple's ear and he pulled the disciple like this. He said, but a book cannot do this. Meaning that the book cannot manifest in that way. So there's a very interesting conversation between Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, and a disciple asks him a question about Lord Jesus Christ. And if Jesus Christ is the Jagat Guru, can we not, can we not access Christ in the same way? Now it's interesting that those who call themselves Ritvik followers of Prabhupada, or the true followers of Prabhupada, they say that Prabhupada is equally accessible to everyone. But this is what Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati says. That, yes, that's true, but there must be some caution. So he's asked, Jesus Christ is Jagat Guru, the spiritual master of the world. His instructions alone are sufficient for our spiritual welfare. Is it still necessary then to accept a Mahanta Guru, a great spiritual Acharya, who is still living in this world? And this is what Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati replies. He says, we accept both Jagat Guru and Mahanta Guru. If only the Jagat Guru is accepted, the result has many undesirable consequences, or anarthas. If someone accepts such a great soul from the past, in this case, Jesus Christ, and wishes to follow in his footsteps in the present, but considers that there is no need for any Mahanta Guru, it is questionable to what extent he will be able to properly follow the views of Jesus. Only the succession, or parampara, of Mahanta Gurus mercifully delivers to us the words of the Supreme Lord or of the Jagat Guru. So this is very interesting. So it's saying in order to Jagat Guru, yes, you can take access of Jesus Christ or Madhvacharya or Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, great Acharya. But in order to safeguard the teachings and to give you access, there must be a line of Mahanta Gurus as well as the Jagat Guru. Then he gives an example. He says that the stream of water which comes from the Himalayas, the Ganges, he says it flows all the way down from the high Himalayas and the ice and snow, all the way down to Navadvip. He says, and we can take advantage of the water of the Himalayas from here in Navadvip. He says, I cannot travel to the mountains of the Himalayas. I cannot access the water there, but the water is flowing down to me. We are sitting at such a distance and we are able to touch the water from the Himalayas. In the same way, the Mahanta Guru brings the current of the river of Shuddha Bhakti as pure and sacred as the waters of the Ganga, and he showers it on our heads. But if the banks of the Ganges had not existed, a person as ordinary and weak as me, a person without resources, could never have been able to climb the Himalayas and touch the water there. If the teachings preached by, and just listen to this because it's very important for us in our mission of ISKCON going forward. If the teachings preached by Jesus Christ 2,000 years ago are not carried forward through Guru Parampara into the present time, if Jesus Christ's message is sought only in his books and recorded instructions, then there is a possibility that we will mistakenly accept distortions of the truth preached by him, or even accept views that are opposite to his as his own. Mahanta Guru is also Jagat Guru. He is the manifestation of the previous Jagat Guru. He receives the teachings of the Jagat Guru through the Parampara and mercifully delivers them to us. Good. So you will know this idea of Parampara. Parampara means one after the other, and Sampradaya means a school of thought which has reached us today from the mechanism of the Parampara. Parampara, one after the other, after the other, after the other. And Prabhupada many times used the idea of the mango at the top of the tree, the mango being the ripest, sweetest mango at the top of the tree, and a succession of men standing in the tree who will pass the mango one to the other, to the other, to the other, so that we can taste the sweetness. So same idea. Why mango? Because it is very delicate. You have to handle it delicately. So only those people who have handled the Siddhanta very delicately form the Parampara. There may be many others in the community, but the Parampara is clearly established by those who are the most careful. So then we turn again to the Vayu Purana. Achinoti hi shastraratam acharya stapayatyapi swayam acharati yasmad acharya stena kirtita. An acharya is described as an acharya because 1, he studied, 2, understood, 3, practices, and 4, establishes the meaning of Shastra in the behavior of others. So that these four things make a guru, acharya, or spiritual master. He studies, and there are different words for each of these people. If you teach, for instance, if you teach Shastra, but you don't practice it, you're known as pracharaka. If you follow Shastra, but you don't teach, upadhyaya. But if you learn it, understand it, teach it, and follow it, and teach it to others, and establish it in them, these four things, then the word acharya or guru is properly established. Actually, the ancient word guru means one who's just heavy with knowledge. It doesn't mean one who teaches that knowledge. Acharya is the one who teaches. But because we have equalized those words, so we use the word guru as also meaning one who teaches. So the other meaning of the guru is that he has to make the teachings accessible, which may mean, for instance, language. It's very hard to be a guru in Russia if you don't speak Russian. Imagine that Prabhupada had gone to, Japan. Prabhupada was invited to Japan in 1962, and if he had been successful in Japan, then all of our books would have been in Japanese, and our movement might not have reached, well, it would have reached Vladivostok, I'm sure, but it would have been a different history. But guru usually means one whose teachings are in the language that the person is able to understand, and he has preserved them without changing them, etc. But they're accessible to contemporary, but in the business of making them relevant and accessible to people, the guru has to make sure that he doesn't change it. In other words, you have to be very careful when you change something from English to Russian, so that there's no misunderstandings there. So Prabhupada tells us that when a guru does this, then the next generation of disciples will make it accessible to, they will become gurus for the next generation, and they will teach according to what their guru has told them. And we see this from the very beginning. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, we find how Srila Vyasadeva codified and protected the literature of the Vedas and made it accessible for people who may not be able to recite it by heart, but who wrote it down in writing, Devanagari, and then gave it to different disciples to teach their own disciples. So a list of Vyasadeva's disciples is given, and then the Shastra that they were given. So Payala Rishi looked after the Rig Veda, Jaimini looked after the Samaveda, Vaishampayana became the professor of the Yajurveda Veda, and Angita Muni the Atharva Veda. And then Ramaharshan Sutta, you will remember, became the protector of the Puranas. He was the grand disciple of Srila Vyasadeva. So this is the Guru's work. It's not just that he knows the Vedas and he teaches the Vedas, but he has to make sure that the Vedas survive in the world, are relevant and accessible for common people, and that his disciples will be very strong in their understanding, behavior, and also their teaching as well. So without teaching his disciples and empowering them, the Guru's work is not done. Only when he safeguarded the Vedas for the next generation is the Guru's mission in life complete. So the Guru's happiness is when he sees his disciples also caring for others and preaching. And in this way, the ancient knowledge can be preserved, and yet always kept fresh. And that may mean that the Guru's disciples work together. Often you go to take initiation to the Guru, he teaches you, you leave the ashram, you go home. There may or may not be a working together with all of your god brothers like that as tradition. But some god brothers may work together to preserve the Acharya's teachings, his library, his name, his fame, his compassion. And they write and they broadcast. And when they work together like this, we call it a sabha or a sammelan or a mission. And in February the 5th, 1919, so 102 years ago, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati started a human mission. He created something that was not there so much before. There was isolated Gaudiya Vaishnavas living in different places. The teachings had been allowed to slip into something of private practice only. But Bhaktivinoda Thakur gave a human face to that mission by sending out preachers. So when those preachers work together, we call that an institution or an establishment or an organization. So in 1919, Saraswati Thakur gave it a shape, and he called that the Vishva Vaishnava Raja Sabha. And he said that this is the third descent of the Vishva Vaishnava Raj Sabha in this world. First was with the 6 Goswamis who created the Vishva Vaishnava Raj Sabha, which means the organization of the chief of the Vaishnavas, Sri Chaitanya. So Vishva Vaishnava Raja Sabha. The 6 Goswamis created that, and they had an organization, and different Goswamis were responsible for literature, deity worship, debate, and establishing philosophical strength, moral behavior, all of that kind of thing. So then, after some time, that disappeared. Then it came again in the time of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, who formed his Namahata. Then it came again, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati said, in the form of the third appearance, Vishva Vaishnava Raj Sabha in 1919, which later became known as the Gaudiya Math. And the fourth appearance, of course, is ISKCON in the form of Srila Prabhupada's worldwide preaching order. So this is the human organization which guarantees and takes forward the teachings of the Guru. So for this purpose, many gurus are required. I won't spend too long on this because I know you have questions now and we're getting on. So in April of 1975, in Mayapur, Prabhupada says, he's talking about the word Acharya. Each member of the Panchatattva is an Acharya. And then he says, so we have to follow the Acharya. Then when we are completely 100% follower of the Acharya, then you can also act as Acharya. This is the process. Don't become premature Acharya. First of all, follow the orders and you become mature. Then it is better to become Acharya. And then he talks about how the etiquette is to wait until your own guru has passed before you become the Acharya yourself. He goes on a little bit more and he says, to become Acharya is not very difficult. So in the beginning, he says that, become pure follower. But then he says, it's not very difficult. First of all, to become faithful servant of your Acharya, follow strictly what he says, try to please him and spread Krishna consciousness. That is all. It is not at all difficult. Try to follow the instruction of your Guru Maharaj and spread Krishna consciousness. That is the order of Lord Chaitanya. Amara Agyaya Guru Anatara Idesh Yaradeka Tarikar Krishna Upadesh. You know that one? He says, and I'm finishing now. So your attention on this last piece. He says, so one who is spreading Krishna Upadesh, simply repeat what is said by Krishna, then you become Acharya. Not difficult at all. Everything is stated there. We have to simply repeat like a parrot. And he says, not exactly parrot. Parrot does not understand the meaning. He simply vibrates. But you should understand the meaning also. Otherwise, how can you explain? So we want to spread Krishna consciousness. Simply prepare yourself how to repeat Krishna's instructions very nicely without any misinterpretation. Then in future, then Prabhupada starts talking about numbers. Suppose you've got now 10,000. He's sitting in front of his disciples in Mayapur, 1975, just encouraging them to go to their respective countries after the festival and preach. We shall expand to 100,000. That is required. Then 100,000 to 1 million, and million to 10 million. By this time, all the devotees are Jai Prabhupada. Prabhupada says, so there will be no scarcity of Acharya, and people will understand Krishna consciousness very easily. So make that organization. Don't be falsely puffed up. Follow the Acharya's instruction and try to make yourself perfect. Then it will be very easy to fight out Maya. And because he said this in 1975, it was an echo of things that he previously said. And I'll send you all the quotes. But he said that in 1967, he was talking about it. And Prabhupada came in 65 to America. 66, he started ISKCON. And in 1967, he was already talking about his disciples becoming guru. He said, I wish that in my absence, all my disciples become the bona fide spiritual master. 68, he said the same thing. 68, 69, 69, 71, 71, 73, 75, 76. Okay, so there are many, many statements like that. 73, he said it at Bhaktivedanta Manor. In 73, I came in 74, but this statement was still, how you say, reverberating at Bhaktivedanta Manor because Prabhupada had spoken it in the Vyasa Puja the year before. So we knew this statement, we were told this statement. He said that you are the next, you will take, you are the next in line. He was speaking to everybody, you are the next in line. I have that quote. But the other aspect to balance that is, of course, that, in 1976, I was present when Prabhupada came from Germany, where the German devotees had made the mistake of lying to the public and collecting money and not sending it to the starving children in Bangladesh, etc. And so the police had come and taken their records and their money and everything. And so Prabhupada was very disappointed with them. So he walked into Bhaktivedanta Manor. We received him. I sat down in front of him. And Prabhupada said, so a devotee who is a sadhu must not do anything wrong. He said, if an ordinary man does something wrong, he said, this is like a black spot on a white sheet. He said, everybody will see the black spot. They will not see the white sheet. They'll look immediately to the black spot. He says, if an ordinary man does something wrong, he said, no one will care because he's an ordinary man. Oh, well, he's an ordinary man. But if a sadhu does something wrong, it is like a black spot on a white sheet. Everybody will look at the black spot. Now, this is interesting because in other verses, Prabhupada says that if a sadhu does something wrong, it's like a black spot on the moon. He said, we don't criticize the moon when it has black spots because the brilliance of the moon is so brilliant. But on this particular occasion, I'm telling you exactly what he said. So he said it is like a black spot. Everybody will look at the black spot and they will talk. Oh, here's a sadhu, but he did this wrong thing. So Prabhupada, he placed the bookends for us. On the one hand, don't do anything wrong. Try to become pure, represent these teachings. And on the other hand, everybody should become acharya. But his guru may not be perfect, but then he issued different cautions. And I will just end by telling you there's a South Indian acharya. This is not Bhaktivedanta Bani, but there's a South Indian acharya called Pillai Lokacharya. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur liked his writings and translated them into Bengali. And Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati had two members of the Sri Vaishnava Sampradaya come and speak about these things to his disciples in his Gaudiya Mat, the Chaitanya Mat in Mayapur. So Pillai Lokacharya, he wrote a book called Vachana Bhushanam, and he's about the year 1300, like that. And he said that there's delusions of the guru. He said the guru has to be very careful that he does not become deluded by thinking of himself as a guru. If he thinks of himself as a guru, then he loses his position. He says the delusion of the disciple, he says the guru should not think of the disciple as his own personal servant, but should think of him as a co-disciple of his.
Kripamay Prabhu, would you mind if I just catch up with you, because it was a lot of information I have not caught up yet. Okay. I have just explained about Pillai Lokacharya. Would you mind starting over again from the quotes that you wanted to tell the devotees so I could translate them simultaneously, because it's very important.
Yes, thank you. From which point?
From the point when you started quoting Pillai Lokacharya's works.
Okay. So this is Vachana Bhushanam. It means the ornament of speech. And he says that this was his sort of big book that he wrote towards the end of his life, in which he codified many things that he'd understood. I just thought it is interesting for us because he writes that the guru may be sometimes subjected to illusion if he's not careful. And the illusion, the chief illusion, is that he thinks of himself as a guru, and that this prevents him from being able to function. So the guru should always think of himself as a disciple. That's the meaning of that one. So then the guru should think about the disciple not as a servant of him, but as a servant of his guru. So in other words, every ISKCON guru should think of their disciples as being a servant of Prabhupada, and we are simply looking after them on Prabhupada's behalf. Then he said, further to this, he said, delusions come as a result of instructing disciples. He says there's four things. When the guru seeks to gain financially from the disciple, it's not that the disciple should not give dakshin. The disciple should give dakshin as much as he likes, but the guru should not be looking for it. If the guru looks for it, then that is a problem. And the delusion that one is, next one, is that the guru should not think that he's actually facilitating the liberation of the disciple. Meaning that the pipe coming down from the house should not be congratulated for delivering the rain. The rain is coming from a higher place, and the pipe is just the means. So the Guru should think of himself, this is God's grace, this is Krishna's grace that is delivering this disciple, not me. If I say something worthy, that is Krishna's inspiration. It's just so that the Guru doesn't become overtaken by ego. And finally, the Guru should not expect service from disciples, or they are meant to serve him because, of course, pariprashanena sevaya, they're meant to ask questions and serve him, but not that he looks to them for service, not that he becomes attached to their service, or that he looks to them for companionship. So those are just a few cautions from the year 1300, which may be relevant. So I think I should rest there. I don't know how long I've been talking, probably much longer than an hour.
Yes, Kripamoy Prabhu, we've been going for, thank you very much for this very meaningful and informative and insightful exposition on this topic. We might have some questions from the devotees who have been listening to you, and I can ask them to raise their hands or send their questions by chat. Either way, you'll see them raise their hands. For instance, there is one hand up, Devakinandana Prabhu, a devotee who is responsible for a major educational project in former Soviet Union, and he also looks after the Russian Bhakti Shastri in Mayapur. So he has raised his hand, and I can give the floor to him, if you don't mind. So we can go for a few minutes. It's already 1 hour and 25 minutes into your class, but we could go over time as long as we have questions. Девакинандана Прабhu, вы можете задать ваш вопрос. Мандалапати Прабhu, пожалуйста, вы принимаете вопрос, я буду продолжать переводить.
Хорошо.
Хари Кришна, примите мои смиренные поклоны. Спасибо большое за замечательную презентацию. Вопрос в следующем. У нас в курсе «Ученик в ИСККОН» есть урок, где говорится о 3 аспектах принятия прибежища учеником. Он может принимать прибежище у Шикша-гуру, Дикша-гуру и у Шрилы Прабхупады в равной степени. То есть означает, что он может в каком-то одном из аспектов принимать прибежище. Могли бы вы раскрыть эту тему, потому что немного возникает вопрос вот у Шрилы Прабхупады, как он принимает прибежище, получается, его наставлений и книг, хотя сам Прабхупада говорил, что нужен кто-то, кто как бы может за ухо тебя подергать. Спасибо.
I'll translate the... Дорогие преданные, пожалуйста, выключите аудио, звук в своих зумах, чтобы никого не было слышно. Крипамой Прабhu, I'll translate the question for you. The question was, oh, by the way, if you see on your screen, there is a tab, Russian, English. When I start translating, then you can switch to English, and I'll be able to translate questions as they're being asked for you simultaneously as well, so you don't have to break up your presentation. But the question was, Devakinanda Prabhu said that they teach the course, Disciple in ISKCON, in their Bhakti Shastri course, and there are 3 categories of shelter that are being described. That the devotee can take shelter of his or her Diksha Guru, Shiksha Guru, or Srila Prabhupada. And his question is, how exactly do we take shelter of Srila Prabhupada? Because today you said that Prabhupada's teachings by themselves, Prabhupada wanted us to take shelter of a physical guru, and you quoted that, they cited the story when Prabhupada pulled the ear of his disciple and told him that a book cannot do that to you. So could you please elaborate on how specifically what is meant by taking shelter of Srila Prabhupada in our context when we don't have physical access to him?
Можно еще дополнение сделаю?
Дорогие преданные, пожалуйста, пишите вопросы в чате, это лучше будет, потому что тогда мне будет быстрее переводить, чтобы время сэкономить нашего гостя и также ваших всех. Мы будем переводить вопросы из чата.
Там Уточню, там вот говорится о том, что он может в равной степени в любом из трех принимать прибежище.
Devakinanda Prabhu specifies his question that the statement in the course, a disciple in ISKCON, said that a disciple can equally take shelter of these three sources of shelter, Shiksha Guru, Diksha Guru, and Srila Prabhupada, and the word equally was used. So would you kindly elaborate on that?
Да, то есть имеется в виду, что он может только у Шрилы Прабхупады.
My understanding is that we are trying to make Guru Tattva relevant for a worldwide organization in which a guru may initiate and then the disciple may see that guru once a year, sometimes once every 2 years. And in the physical absence of that guru, we are giving opportunities by our teaching to stress the validity of Prabhupada's availability through his words, which is not insignificant. It is very significant. And also the sadhus that we find ourselves living with in ISKCON temples, ISKCON communities, etc. like that. What can we do? We have a situation that was never there in the ancient world. Prabhupada is available in recordings that were not there in the ancient world, through printing, which was not there in the ancient world. So we have new manifestations of the Guru's mercy. This is one area where postmodern Guru Tattva and ancient Guru Tattva are slightly varied. Can one take shelter of the Guru sufficiently through simply books and instructions? Well, according to ancient texts, the Guru, and according to Srila Prabhupada, the Guru is a physical manifestation. That's true. But Krishna also wants to work through the heart and also through any manifestation that is available to the contemporary disciple in the world. So I think that statement has validity, but at the same time, I think that there may be some devotees who wish only to have Prabhupada's books, and they will be missing something if they don't have a Shiksha or Diksha Guru. Perhaps at this time in ISKCON, we are looking for harmony, and we're looking to unite the international society around Srila Prabhupada's legacy. But at the same time, we don't want to invalidate those things that were said by Prabhupada. Prabhupada said the Guru is a physical manifestation. We cannot provide that to everybody because there are 80 or 90 Gurus for many, many thousands of people. They are sannyasis, they're traveling. Therefore, that creates a vacuum into which comes other forms of understanding Guru, having a relationship with Guru. It's just 2021 and we are what we are. We're not ancient, we're not medieval, we are what we are today. So there's some advantages and some disadvantages. Is that all right, Devakinandan? There are many things that we could say.
Sorry, Prabhuji, by advantages and disadvantages, I didn't quite catch the last few sentences that you said that we can rely on Srila Prabhupada's recorded instructions in his books. We have a limited number of Diksha Gurus who also travel, like 90 or 80 or 90 of them, and sannyasis, but we shouldn't invalidate other forms of shelter. Is it what you said?
Yes. For instance, when we come across, we have an instruction by Srila Prabhupada, we shouldn't then think of ways to invalidate Prabhupada's instructions because of contemporary circumstances. In other words, contemporary ISKCON should not invalidate Prabhupada's statements, but rather we should seek to improve contemporary ISKCON so that it can completely validate Prabhupada's instructions.
И Враджендра Кумар Прабу, вы можете задать ваш вопрос? На английском переводить не нужно.
Одну секунду, Враджендра Кумар Прабу, можно я договорю просто? Я не успел закончить. Just a second. I'll have to finish translating what you've said, to explain a little bit in the context of what you said previously.
Okay.
Другими словами, Крипамоя Прабу.
Let me say this then, to make it easier for everyone. ISKCON is in a state of becoming. It is not it is in a state of flux. We are moving towards what we wish to create.
Rajendra Kumar, please go ahead, ask your question, but please ask your question slowly so I could catch up with you translating for devotees as well.
Hare Krishna, my name is Rajendra Kumar Das. I come from Vladivostok, far east of Russia. And I would like to ask, it's regarding our previous meeting with Burijan Prabhu one week ago. And he explained how once in Melbourne, in Australia, Srila Prabhupada was telling about the huge eagles flying from one planet to another planet. And one disciple who was listening to this lecture, he said, it's hard to believe, Srila Prabhupada. And Srila Prabhupada paused and he said, what do you know? You are still in the womb of your mother. And Brijan Prabhu commented that the disciple, he didn't recover from that statement yet. He didn't explain what it means that he didn't recover. But my question is, what is the only way to answer? Why did Srila Prabhupada smash the disciple instead of giving some, explanation which could remove the doubt? So question is basically regarding the relations of guru and disciple, because sometimes the reply, the answer can inspire disciples, and sometimes it can, such a negative effect that the disciples didn't still recover from that answer. So can you explain this one?
Yeah. The guru uses different techniques. Sometimes he is like a rose. Sometimes he's like a thunderbolt. Sometimes he answers questions. And sometimes he answers questions very obliquely or indirectly. In Bhaktivedanta Manor, Prabhupada arrived in January 1975, and I was a new devotee. I was already initiated without seeing Prabhupada. This was my first time to see Prabhupada. And it was wonderful to see him for the first time, but I'd never heard him speak. So one disciple asked a question, and Prabhupada said, that is not a very important question. Another disciple asked a question, and Prabhupada made a joke. Immediately I became disappointed, because I thought a guru was someone who gave deep, meaningful, detailed explanations to every disciple. But it seems that what Prabhupada did is answered in such a way that the disciple would be either informed or would have their ego diminished, because that is the other function of a guru, is to diminish the ego of the disciple. One time Prabhupada he said, initiation means suicide of the ego. In Bhaktivedanta Manor, my friend asked Prabhupada another question. He said, how are we to understand that universes are coming out of Mahavishnu like bubbles. Prabhupada went, huh? And he repeated the question. And Prabhupada just looked at him and he said, how can you understand with your puppy brain? So sometimes he was very harsh and very cutting. But that is part of the function of the guru. But there are many ways in which a guru teaches. Sometimes the lesson that he wants to teach the disciple is not about answering the question, but how the disciple asked the question. So there's at least 24 different ways in which the guru teaches the disciple. I've listed them all in my book, the Guru Disciple book. So these are all the 24 different ways that the guru teaches the disciple. So this is one of them, by harsh, sometimes disrespectful answers. But then I went upstairs. I went upstairs into Prabhupada's room, and after Prabhupada's guru persona downstairs on the Vyasasan, I saw him upstairs with his disciples, and I was able to see that he was having a nice conversation with all of us, asking, how are you, and how are you, and how are you? So I went from being disappointed with him to being, reestablished in a relationship with him. So that was a special moment. But the guru can't give harsh answers all the time. Occasionally he has to balance. And Prabhupada said it is like this. He said a man is making, in Vrindavan, he says a man is making a pot, and he has his fist inside the pot, and outside the fist he has a hammer. Tuck, 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 tuck. If there is no hammer, he cannot make a pot. If there is no fist to support, then there will be no pot. It will just be a mess. So this way, 2 hands are required. Support and gradually tuck, 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 like this. So in this way, the disciple is shaped. So
Kripamoy Prabhu, just a second. I want to capture your analogy completely. So please pause for a few seconds. I'll translate it, and then we can go ahead. Итак, горшечник. Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah. So I think that when we try to understand Prabhupada's replies, we should understand Prabhupada's replies, whether they are recorded by someone or written down. These replies have to be understood on the basis of that Prabhupada had a relationship. So within a relationship, you can say things that are sometimes heavy or rude, but you can get away with it according to the disciples' relationship. With disciples that were only very delicately disciples, Prabhupada was very kind and apparently soft. With disciples that were able to hear such things, he would often speak very strongly to them. Sometimes without without a reason to be so hard. He would use it as an example to be very hard. Just like, I'll give you an example. One sannyasi was arranging for Prabhupada to have a stereo system in his room. He thought it would be nice if Prabhupada could hear kirtan on a stereo system. And so he was getting the right-hand speaker and the left-hand speaker, but the 2 channels would not, they could not arrange it. And so he said to Prabhupada, walked into the room and he said, Prabhupada, I'm trying to arrange a stereo so that your left ear and your right ear gets sound separately, but I can't do it. Therefore, I think we'll have to merge the channels. But he didn't even say the channels, he just said merge. And Prabhupada looked at him and he said, merge? Why are you talking of merging? And then Prabhupada gave him a lecture for 1 hour on how the soul does not merge. Now you say, that has nothing to do, that has nothing to do with anything. But he saw this disciple, I'm going to use this as an opportunity to tell this disciple about impersonalism. So the Guru used the opportunity. It wasn't even a question. It was nothing to do with the issue, but he used this as an opportunity to teach. So sometimes the Guru teaches and the disciple feels he is bullying me. He is being very hard with me. But at the same time, that disciple stayed as a devotee. So the expert Guru can do it without harming the disciple. The inexpert Guru should be very cautious.
Okay, thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Each of these questions we could talk much more. I'm trying to be very brief because there may be a few more on the chat.
So we have a few questions from the chat. One question is from Yugavatar Prabhu, who is the regional secretary for Belarus. The Belarusian Yatra is a country in the former Soviet Union. So Yugavatar Prabhu is the leader there. And his question is, in the presentation you said, quoting Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, that we accept or we meet Guru according to our destiny. Could you please clarify what the destiny means, if you could kindly elaborate on that? Вопрос Югаватары Прабhu. Вы можете прочитать в чате.
Yeah, thank you, Yuga Avatar. I am married and my wife's grandparents are from Belarus. So Hare Krishna. We may have purity in our search for the Guru. We may have impurity in our search for the Guru. And Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati's reply was that sometimes if a person is not pure, they may receive a Guru which is according to their manifest desire, the development of their desire. So we sometimes see, much less now than we used to, but we sometimes see that a devotee becomes disappointed in spiritual life because they took shelter of someone who was not able to teach them properly, or who is not able to set the example of spiritual life that they required. Sometimes it is like that. Many times we put all the emphasis or all the blame onto the Guru, or all the emphasis or blame on ISKCON as providing such and such people. But it seems from what Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati was saying, is that this phenomenon has always been there. There have always been insincere disciples, and there will always be insincere gurus, and they will meet each other according to their desire. That's just a principle. Is that okay? It's a principle that we have to be aware of, and we have to exercise caution. Yeah.
Next question is from Mataji Yamuna from Latvia. She and her husband Bhaktiman Prabhu are taking charge of. Oh, I'm sorry, maybe I'm mistaken her for someone else. Anyhow, she has a question. Please accept our humble, actually it's in English, please accept our humble obeisances. Explain one more time the difference in the Acharya and Mahant Guru. I'll translate into Russian. The question was asked in English in chat, and it was also asked in Russian. So I'll switch to interpretation, and you can go ahead, Kripa Moya Prabhu, answer this question.
Yeah. Well, often, there are different Sanskrit words which all mean the same thing. And for instance, sometimes we say guru, sometimes we say acharya, sometimes we say spiritual master. Mahanta Guru just means a great personality, as described in the 11th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, who has 28 qualities of a great Mahant, a great sadhu. And the most important of those 28 is that he's surrendered to Krishna. So that is what is meant, at least in that quote that we read by Mahanta Guru. But it's not a different kind of guru. It's not a different species. It's another description. Sanskrit has many words for the same thing. So whether you say acharya or guru or spiritual master or sadhu or like that, santa, there may be many terms that you use. Okay? I'm being brief.
Next question is the question of legitimacy of ISKCON. In ISKCON, we have some weak spots regarding Diksha. Do we have any weak spots regarding our Diksha Parampara in ISKCON? Because we oftentimes hear criticism from the side of some Babajis of Radha Kunda who try to delegitimize or undermine the legitimacy of our Parampara.
Yeah. Well, from the point of view of a person who says that for a Diksha Parampara to be absolutely authentic and pure, that each guru has to be connected to the next one by Diksha. Yes, Bhaktivinoda Thakur was asked this question. He said, yes. He said, there are many gaps in the Parampara, sometimes of many decades or 100, 200 years. He said, but the main thing, he says, is that the teachings have been preserved. It is not so easy sometimes to have an acharya to fit the post. He said, sometimes it is like a pure river that goes underground for some miles and then resurfaces at another place. He said, the water is the same. It's just that you have not been able to see it for some distance. He said, but we should understand that the Parampara is preserved. There are many good essays on this, actually. One is written by B.G. Narasimha Swami, who just passed away this year. He died this year or last year. And he's written a whole book about the purity of the Parampara that now finds expression in the disciples of Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, and how we should not be disturbed by the complaints that comes from chiefly from the Babaji section of Radhakund. These complaints have been coming since the times of Bhaktivinoda Thakur in the late 1800s, 1860s, 1870s, like that. So that will always be there. But they also complain about Gayatri mantras. They complain about Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati re-establishing sannyas. They complain about many things. So what to do with complaints? Well, I can send you the papers for validating the ISKCON Parampara, and maybe they'll be useful for using that in other places. Eventually, everything will come to Russia as well. We have many such people in England. We have Sahajas in England. We have Babajis in England. We have all different types of Gaudiya manifestations in England. and I'm sure it's coming in Russia. If you don't already have it, you will have it sometime soon. So get ready. The future will be very colorful for you.
Kripamoy Prabhu, I don't see any other questions in the chat.
Oh,
Actually, yes.
26 questions though.
You have?
Pavana Prabhu,
Pavana Prabhu has just sent a question. Yes, I just saw that. I just seen it.
Yeah.
So there's a long question by Pavana Prabhu. I'll just summarize it for you. That in ISKCON we oftentimes absolutize Diksha. When Diksha is promoted to an absolute platform, at the same time our association with the Guru is very rare and sporadic, and often too general. But the disciple of the Guru is supposed to know not just the instructions of the Shastras, but he is supposed to know the disciple himself or herself. And oftentimes we are being led and cared for by our Shiksha Gurus who care for us and maintain us. And still the relationship with the Diksha Guru is being held to an absolute or promoted to an absolute platform. But Shiksha Guru is not oftentimes spoken about. And I don't hear that even Diksha Gurus themselves do not emphasize the culture of Shiksha oftentimes. So the question is about what is the status of Shiksha Gurus in ISKCON that who de facto lead devotees in their spiritual lives and serve or perform all the functions of a Diksha Guru except giving Diksha. What should be the proper culture towards such Vaishnavas and how it should manifest from those devotees who take shelter of them? And also, what is the proper attitude of Diksha Gurus themselves towards those who help them fulfill their obligations towards their disciples? It's a long question, but that's a question.
No, good.
Дорогие преданные, я не буду переводить его на русский, сами прочитайте в чате, пожалуйста.
This is a very good question. We cannot change Shastra. So in one sense, the Diksha Guru is absolute in the sense that he is the representative of Krishna. So we don't want to change that. However, you should understand that according to ancient systems, the Guru was in one spot. When it says Samit Pani Shochiyam Brahmanishtam, you meet the Shochiyam Brahmanishtam, the Guru who has heard and understood and is fixed in Brahman. You meet that person by taking firewood to him, and then you reside in the ashram for 1 year. The Guru understands you, you understand him. If you like him, then you take Diksha. So Sanatana Goswami and Gopal Bhatta Goswami have repeated that injunction in the Hari Bhakti Vilas that 1 year should be taken to understand the Guru. So when the Guru is a householder or is living in one town, you can do that. When the Guru is a sannyasi, in many, many cases, the Guru is a sannyasi in ISKCON. So the benefit of having a sannyasi as a Guru is that you know that you're dealing with a detached person. The disadvantage is that you can't see him. So what does ISKCON have to do? Perhaps ISKCON has to make the sannyasis stable, but then according to ancient instructions, that is not a sannyasi. A sannyasi gains detachment by traveling. So the ancient system, the ancient world, was that the Guru is a householder. So if all the Gurus in ISKCON were a householder, then perhaps one problem would be solved. If all the preachers were sannyasis and all the Gurus were householders, that would be a different type of ISKCON. However, I don't see that's going to happen very soon. But it does create this, English word is disparity. What we read about the Guru in Shastra and what we get for the Guru in ISKCON is often two different things, because I get Diksha from the Guru, that's true, but I don't get any Shiksha at all. And I think we have to be very careful that we don't get back to the times of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati where because of our success in ISKCON, we just have so many disciples now and very few teachers, very few gurus, that we find ourselves in a situation where, you know, the ISKCON guru is blowing the mantra in the ear, but not giving any shiksha or training. So that's the situation. As I said, ISKCON is in the process of developing. It is not fixed as it is today. And it's the duty of all of you to make the ISKCON of the future manifest in a way that serves as many disciples of the future as possible. But for the moment, the relationship of a Diksha Guru to a Shiksha Guru, first of all, Shiksha Guru is equal manifestation of the Supreme Lord, according to Chaitanya Charitamrita, and therefore is to be respected by the disciple. Basically, Guru is a person who manifests Krishna for you, who teaches you Krishna, trains you in worshipping Krishna, helps you to understand Krishna, and keeps you on the right path of bhakti. So to those people who perform the function of Shiksha Guru, we should be very respectful. We should also pariprashnena sevaya. We should ask them questions. Prashna means questions, and pari means all around the subject, pariprashna, like. You know. And so we should do service for them. We should serve them. And if I am a Diksha Guru, but I'm not training my disciple, then I should be very, very grateful to people who are training my disciples, because what is my guruship? I gave a mantra, but I did not train them. I should be very respectful. And I should speak to my disciples after I've spoken to the Shiksha Guru. I should ask them, how is my disciple? How are they doing? How are they prospering? Are they doing well? Please tell me. You are looking after them. Please tell me. That should be the relationship. But it is not that, for instance, the Diksha Guru should have all the influence and the Shiksha Guru should give all the teaching and have no influence. It is not, for instance, that the Diksha Guru should give a mantra and get the dakshina and the Shiksha Guru is in poverty. We don't know. We can't have that. You see, if that is happening in some places, then it is, you know, like this. It should be balanced up. So for the disciple, he or she should understand that this person is giving me Krishna. So there should be a very respectful attitude. Not that this is my Diksha Guru and he's giving me everything. And you're only my Shiksha Guru. I don't have to be surrendered to you. But neither should the Shiksha Guru think, I'm giving you everything, therefore you should surrender to me. The Shiksha Guru also has to be aware that I have to be humble. I'm teaching someone else's disciple. They're my student, but I have to be humble, otherwise I shall fall into the same trap as any guru falls, as Pillai Lokacharya was saying. Is that all right? But we're talking about ISKCON and our culture increasing and improving and developing. When I first became a devotee, I joined a group of 20 people. I walked into a house, and it was a house with, you know, one of the Beatles, George Harrison, had given us the house. And he came sometimes, and there was 20 of us. And you know what they said to me? They said to me, your job is to spread the Hare Krishna movement all over England. And I said, where is the movement? And they said, you are the movement. I said, it's just us. So now you have to spread it. So what we see now is not the ISKCON as it was, but ISKCON that we made. So similarly in Russia, where whether you're in Vladivostok or you're in Moscow or Tajikistan or Belarus, you have to spread the movement and create it. And at the moment, yes, there are It's in a stage of becoming. Just like Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, he says, you can see the plant, and sometimes at the top of the plant, you can see a tiny, tiny little bit of red. That is the flower just beginning to make itself shown. So, but so the bud is like this, and there's a little bit of red at the top, but then it goes like this, and it fully develops into a full flower. So ISKCON maybe is like this. We see the beginnings of something, but ISKCON of the future will be like this, fully blown. And your job as devotees is to take the mission and to develop it. So if there's some discrepancy between the roles of Diksha Guru and Shiksha Guru, we have to say, okay, what is it that we need? What would it look like if it was perfect? What do we have to change? And how can we change it?
Thank you very much, Kripamoy Prabhu. A follow-up question from Pavana Prabhu. Again, he's also one of our leaders in Russia. Why don't we hear the importance of such gurus discussed at the very top of our movement by the Diksha gurus themselves, by those people who Shiksha gurus help care for their disciples? So that's the follow-up question. I guess you have partially covered that. If you want to elaborate on that.
This is when I don't know. I don't know. I think that it's a conversation that we need to have. And I'm very happy to discuss further. I think it is happening in different places. Maybe you need to have it in America also. Excuse me, it's happening in America and Europe. Maybe in Russia, you need to have that conversation. But if the conversation does not take place, then we can, you can choose to create that conversation. But it's very important. And I think it's very important for the future. Because Shiksha Gurus are very, very important. They are the lifeblood of the Hare Krishna movement. But then in the future, many of those Shiksha Gurus should become Diksha Gurus also. Why not? As Prabhupada said, it is not difficult.
Thank you very much, Kripamoy Prabhu. I do not see any other questions, and we can probably wrap it up here. We have already been taking advantage of your association for 2 hours, and it's been extremely elucidating for us and educating in many ways, edifying, and very thought-provocative. And I'm sure many devotees who have listened to your presentation, since most of them are leaders, they will put what they have heard from you to good use. And we will look forward to having more of such discussions, profound discussions with you in the future. It's just the first year and the first batch of our students, and we hope to have this university, Bhaktivedanta University, turn it into a permanent educational project that would prepare future leaders of ISKCON, gurus included. And there is a question: how can we get your book? Is it available anywhere?
Bhakti Vigyan Maharaj is translating it into Russian.
Is it?
No, it's
not difficult to translate it.
It's on Kindle. The English one is on Amazon Kindle. If you have that.
Yeah, it's free there already found.
Yeah. But yes, please send me the Russian version, Russian language version for people, for Russian devotees in this country. And I look forward to being of service any way you like. I thank you very much for your time this morning. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Kripamoy Prabhu. Thank you very much.
Hare
Thank you for
Krishna.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Крипамоя Прабху. Давайте, дорогие преданные, поблагодарим Крипамоя Прабху за время, в котором он поделился с нами замечательные уроки, наставления, переданные из первых уст.
Nitai Gaura Premanandi, Hari Hari.
Шриман Крипамоя Прабху ки джай.
Spasibo большое.